Okay, let's jump right in and bust a common myth right out of the gate. When we hear the phrase civil service behaviors, I bet most of us immediately picture those long written applications, right? Or maybe strictly structured star interview answers. But actually, that is only part of the story. These behaviors are literally the beating heart of situational judgment tests, or SJTs. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how these assessments measure your workplace behavior, and more importantly, how you can approach them with total clarity.
Here's the crucial thing to remember. In an SJT, you aren't telling the civil service what you did in the past. You're not just reciting a carefully rehearsed story. Instead, you're showing them how you would respond to realistic and, let's face it, sometimes pretty messy workplace scenarios. The choices you make in these hypothetical situations, they paint a really vivid picture of your underlying judgment. So, how exactly do your responses reveal whether you've got the effective behaviors required for the role? Well, let's figure that out.
To do that, here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering, number 1, the situational judgment shift, 2, defining effective workplace behaviors, 3, an example looking at delivering at pace, 4, another example for working together, 5, accounting for your grade, and finally, number 6, avoiding common SJT mistakes.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the situational judgment shift.
So, an SJT typically presents you with a realistic workplace situation. You'll get a written scenario detailing a specific problem, along with a list of different possible actions or responses. Now, depending on the test, you might be asked to evaluate, rate, rank, or maybe to select the best and worst responses. Because that format can vary, you absolutely must follow the specific test instructions carefully. But honestly, no matter the exact format, the end goal is always identical: to explore exactly how you apply your workplace judgment to solve problems.
Moving right along to Section 2, defining effective workplace behaviors.
The Success Profiles framework was a real game changer because it moved away from purely competency-based assessments. Behaviors sit right alongside experience, strengths, ability, and technical skills. They're just one specific piece of the overall puzzle used to find the right candidate, sure, but they're a massive driver of how you actually interact with your daily work.
If we look at the official definition right from the source material, behaviors are the actions and activities that people do which result in effective performance in a job. Because behaviors are things that can actually be observed and measured, a situational scenario creates the perfect testing ground. It forces you to choose an action, which totally reveals the judgment underlying your behavior.
And this brings us to a major realization. The assessment isn't just asking, hey, what sounds like the nicest response, or what's the most polite thing to do? Not at all. It is strictly testing whether your judgment aligns with effective behavior in that exact context. Sometimes the most effective action isn't the easiest, and it might not be the most crowd-pleasing either. It's the one that actually delivers on the organizational objectives.
Let's ground this with an example in Section 3, delivering at pace.
Imagine you suddenly receive an urgent task, but you're already juggling several other important deadlines. A really common reflex is an extreme reaction, right? Like immediately abandoning everything else to get the new task done, or on the flip side, completely ignoring the new request until your existing work is finished. But effective judgment looks quite different. The strongest response involves assessing those relative priorities, identifying the implications, communicating with stakeholders, and then reorganizing appropriately.
The official framework actually notes that delivering at pace requires you to take responsibility for delivering timely and quality results with focus and drive. Notice it doesn't just mean picking the option that gets things done the fastest. You still have to understand the context, weigh up your priorities, manage the fallout of shifting deadlines, and crucially, maintain the quality of your work. Basically, speed without quality is definitely not effective behavior.
Let's look at another one in Section 4. Example, working together.
Picture this. A colleague is really struggling to complete an important piece of work. On one side, we have extreme A, which is ignoring them because, well, it's their responsibility, but that damages the wider team's outcome. Then, on the other side, we have extreme B, automatically stepping in and taking over all their work for them. Now, that might seem nice, but it's an inappropriate extreme that'll likely derail your own priorities, and honestly, it doesn't help them develop at all.
And that brilliantly highlights a core strategy for these assessments. Avoid thinking purely in extremes. A truly effective response to a struggling colleague involves understanding the problem, offering proportionate support, and keeping your wider priorities in check. The official framework for working together places a big emphasis on forming effective partnerships, but you've got to do it with proportionate judgment that benefits the whole team, not just bailing out one individual at the expense of everything else.
All right, moving on to Section 5, Accounting for your grade.
Here's where things get really interesting. The Success Profiles document defines behaviors across 6 different levels. So, what effective action looks like for a junior AO at level 1 involves appropriate escalation. That means using guidance and asking colleagues for input to support decision-making. But if you're applying for a grade 7 or director role at levels 4 through 6, the expectation changes completely. At those senior levels, you're expected to demonstrate high-level strategic autonomy, mitigate evaluated risks, and sometimes make and defend really unpopular decisions without just bumping them up the chain.
Because of this, before you evaluate any response in an SJT, you've got to stop and ask yourself this exact question. What would someone operating effectively at this level reasonably be expected to do? Seriously, if you apply level 6 autonomy to a level 1 scenario, you're going to look like a rogue employee. And if you apply level 1 escalation to a level 6 scenario, you'll look completely incapable of leadership. You have to match your judgment to the grade level descriptors.
This brings us to our final part, Section 6, Avoiding Common SJT Mistakes.
When you're reading through a scenario, try walking through these 5 analytical steps. First, ask yourself, what is the actual problem here? Don't get distracted by the noise and irrelevant details. Second, who is affected? Think about colleagues and stakeholders, which really taps into seeing the big picture. Third, what are the risks to deadlines or quality? Fourth, what is within my limit of responsibility? You definitely want to avoid acting beyond your authority. And fifth, which response addresses the problem most effectively and proportionately? This logical flow helps you consistently demonstrate making effective decisions.
And please, be mindful of these really common traps. Do not assume the most dramatic or proactive-looking option is automatically the right one. Avoid the urge to escalate everything to a manager, but at the same time, don't completely refuse to escalate just because you want to look super independent. Don't prioritize speed over quality, and never, ever apply rigid rules without stopping to consider the unique context of the problem in front of you. There's honestly no universal trick to passing an SJT. It's all about consistently applying measured, context-aware judgment.
So the next time you face a situational scenario, just remember that your choices are doing all the talking for you. They're painting a crystal clear picture of your workplace behavior, your understanding of your grade level, and your ability to balance competing priorities. So as you gear up for your next assessment, I want to leave you with this final thought. When the pressure is on and the scenario is incredibly complex, what will your answers say about you? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.